The door rattled like it was about to come off the hinges. A shrill voice tore through the morning air, louder than the wind whipping off the lake. "Open this door right now. I am the president of this HOA, and I have the right to inspect this property." My wife and I exchanged a look not of fear, but of quiet readiness. This wasn't the first time Karen had tried to assert power over something she didn't understand, but today, she'd made a mistake, a big one, because while she came stumping with threats and self-importance, my wife calmly reached into the drawer, pulled out a folder, and walked to the door with a look that could cut glass. When she opened it and silently handed Karen the document, the scream died mid-sentence. Her lips moved, no sound came out, because what she was staring at was a federal warrant with her name on it. It started the day we moved in. We weren't even finished unpacking the truck when a woman with stiff posture and a clipboard showed up like a specter. She didn't smile, didn't say welcome. She simply introduced herself as Karen Dunley, president of the Lakeview Estates, HOA, and started pointing at things like she owned the gravel beneath our tires. "That fence needs to be 3 inches lower," she snapped, without looking up from her notes. "No visible propane tanks, and those shutters. Not compliant with exterior color guidelines." Page 14 of the handbook. My wife Claire looked at her, half amused, half in disbelief. "We just got here. We haven't even opened a box." "Rules don't wait for boxers," Karen replied. That was how it began. We'd bought the cabin in foreclosure, a fixer-upper tucked in the woods with a slice of lakefront that was too quiet to be trendy. It was exactly what we needed: peace, space, and a place to rebuild after the last few years. Claire was recovering from losing her sister. I was recovering from years of burnout in a law firm that ate people for sport. We wanted silence. Instead, we got Karen. Over the next few weeks, she showed up like clockwork. She'd walk by during renovations, snapping pictures from the road. She left violation notices on our front step about things like mailbox height and trash bin visibility. One time, I caught her trying to measure the distance between our grill and the tree line. Another time, she took a photo of Claire's car, claiming the window tint might be too aggressive. Claire played it cool. She always did. She was polite, never rattled, always calm. But I saw the flicker in her eyes, that analytical spark. Claire had worked in compliance at a federal agency before she stepped away to care for her sister. She knew paperwork better than most lawyers I'd ever met. She knew how to build a case quietly, layer by layer. "She's not just annoying," Claire said one night over tea. "She's reckless. She's doing things she's not authorized to do. She's a pain in the ass," I muttered. "What else is new with HOAs?" "She's breaking federal privacy laws," Claire said simply. "She accessed our property line data and posted it on the HOA board. That's not just petty. That's criminal misuse of property tax records." I paused. "Are you serious?" Claire nodded. "I already sent a request to the county records department. There's more. I just need time." From then on, I noticed the shift. Claire stopped getting irritated. She started documenting every visit Karen made, every note she left, every photo she tried to take. Claire recorded it, dated it, filed it. She even placed a motion-activated camera near the edge of our property. It was subtle, hidden. Karen never noticed. Meanwhile, Karen ramped up her efforts. She started citing Community Code 3B, some unofficial clause she claimed gave her the right to inspect our backyard for wildlife hazard compliance. Claire asked her kindly to produce the exact legal foundation of that clause. Karen threatened fines. And then one afternoon, she crossed the line. We came home from town and found our shed open. The lock was broken, the door half off the hinges. Nothing was stolen, but everything inside had been moved, examined. Claire stood frozen for a long moment, eyes scanning every inch. Then she turned to me and whispered. She was looking for something. We knew it was Karen. No one else had reason or access. And the next day, Karen arrived with a smug expression and another clipboard. "Just so you know," she said, "I received an anonymous tip that there may be unauthorized tools or substances stored here. Hazardous material. I may need to call the county inspector." Claire looked her in the eye. "Go ahead. In fact, I think you should. Let's see what happens." Karen blinked, thrown off. But she didn't back down. "I've also spoken to the board. We're considering a vote to suspend your access to the lake dock due to known compliance." I stepped forward. "The dock is public access under the county agreement. You can't suspend anything." She smiled. "We'll see." After she left, Claire turned to me and said something I'll never forget. "I've got everything I need. Now I just need her to show up one more time and try something stupid." For the next 2 weeks, we barely saw Karen. Then, one morning, while I was trimming the hedge, her SUV screeched to a stop outside our cabin. She stormed out, waving papers in the air, yelling about emergency HOA enforcement rights, and demanding to inspect our garage immediately. Claire was inside. She'd been waiting. Calmly, she walked to the drawer and pulled out the thick brown envelope she'd been assembling for months. She didn't say a word as she opened the door. Karen was already mid-sentence, spit flying from her mouth, shouting something about legal consequences and forced eviction hearings. Claire simply handed her the document. Karen took it, scoffed, then actually looked at it and froze. Her face drained of color as she read the top line. Then she read the next, and the next. Her eyes darted to Claire's face, then back to the paper. Her mouth moved, but no words came out, because what she held wasn't just a cease and desist. It was a federal warrant authorizing the investigation of one Karen Dunley for unauthorized data access, trespassing, illegal surveillance, and fraudulent enforcement under false authority. Claire finally spoke, her voice as smooth as glass. You were right, Karen. Rules don't wait for boxers. Karen stood there, stunned, lips trembling, the morning birds chirping louder than her now, and the silence that fell over her was the most peaceful sound we'd heard since moving in. Karen's hand trembled as she clutched the warrant, eyes scanning the seal at the bottom like it might disappear if she blinked. Her mouth opened slightly, trying to form words, but nothing came out. I stepped up beside Claire and watched the breath go out of Karen like a punctured balloon. I didn't know, she finally stammered. This can't be real. Claire remained still. It's very real. You crossed the line, Karen, multiple times. Karen lowered the paper slowly, almost reverently, like it burned to hold it. She looked around, as if expecting someone to leap out from the trees and shout that this was all a prank, but there was no one, just us, the lake breeze, and the thud of her pride hitting the forest floor. Without another word, she turned and walked stiffly to her car. No clipboard, no more barking orders, just silence. She didn't even close the car door properly before driving off in reverse, tires crunching against the gravel. I looked at Claire. How long have you been working on this? She exhaled slowly. Since the second week. She was too bold, too fast. People like her always leave trails. That night, Claire pulled out a second folder from the safe. It was thicker than the first, meticulously labeled. Inside were photos, HOA bylaws, logs of every visit Karen had made, timestamps from the camera, and records of county filings that Karen had tried to amend behind closed doors. There was even a notarized statement from a former HOA board member, a quiet man named Greg who'd resigned suddenly 6 months before we arrived. She's been playing God with this neighborhood for years, Claire explained, bullying newcomers, enforcing fake codes, threatening people into silence. Greg told me she once had a neighbor's fire pit removed by pretending it was on community land. It wasn't. She just didn't like the noise on weekends. I shook my head, and no one stopped her. They tried, but she always made it personal. She'd find something, a forgotten permit, a fence inching onto the easement, and turn it into a crusade. Most people just gave in. Claire's voice was level, but I could hear the steel under it. She didn't fight with fists, she fought with facts, paper, precision, and Karen had underestimated her from day one. The next morning, we thought it was over, but it was just the beginning. Karen didn't show up for 3 days. Her house sat quiet, blinds shut. It was almost unsettling. Then, on the 4th day, we noticed a white pickup truck parked down the street with tinted windows. It wasn't local, no decals, no plates we recognized. But it was there, morning till night, never moving. Claire saw it too. She said nothing at first, just noted the time, the location, snapped a photo. On the 5th day, the truck was gone. Instead, we got a letter taped to our front door. No envelope, no signature, just typed words. Asterisk, asterisk, you're playing a dangerous game. You have no idea who you're messing with. Drop it. Asterisk, asterisk. Claire, read it. Then calmly placed it in a plastic evidence sleeve and slid it into her binder. She's panicking, she said. She knows it's out of her hands now, but she's trying to intimidate us anyway. Should we call someone? I asked. I already did. The agent assigned to the case is monitoring everything. I watched her as she turned away, thinking how quiet her fury was. Not loud or dramatic, but methodical. The kind of anger that doesn't shout. It waits. Plots, ensures every piece fits before striking. A few days later, we got another knock, but not from Karen. It was a man in a charcoal gray windbreaker, badge around his neck, clipboard in hand. Special Agent Lopez, he said. Mind if I ask you a few questions about your neighbor, Karen Dunley? Claire smiled faintly. Of course, I've been expecting you. They spoke in the kitchen for almost an hour. Claire showed him everything. Her files, the camera footage, the notarized statements, the documents Karen had filed under false pretenses. Lopez nodded a lot, took notes, asked quiet questions. He didn't look surprised, just tired, like this wasn't his first HOA dictator gone rogue. When he finally stood to leave, he looked at Claire with something that almost resembled admiration. This is one of the cleanest personal investigations I've ever seen, he said. Have a background in compliance? Used to, she replied. Before life happened? Well, you still have the touch. You may have just saved a whole neighborhood from years of abuse. He left us his card, said we'd be contacted. When they moved forward, Claire watched him go, then sat down, exhaled slowly, and finally, let her shoulders relax. But peace doesn't come quickly to places poisoned by fear. Over the next week, neighbors started talking. It was like a dam broke. By one, they came up our driveway. People we'd barely met, retirees, young couples, even a single mom with her teenage son telling us stories. about Karen storming into their yards, threatening citations for dogs barking too loudly, demanding access to private garages, enforcing rules that didn't exist. She'll find me for putting up Christmas lights. One woman said, voice shaking, said they were religiously insensitive. I didn't fight it. I was scared. She told me my son couldn't skateboard in our own driveway. Another neighbor added, said it was a noise violation. By the third visit, Claire had pulled out a notepad. She took statements, dates, details. She built her kingdom on fear. Claire said to me that night, but it's collapsing now. People are ready to talk. Still, something told us Karen wouldn't go down quietly, and sure enough, just as the sun dipped behind the pines one evening, her SUV returned. But this time, she didn't come alone. She brought back up 3 board members, all standing behind her, stone-faced, silent. She marched up to the porch with a folder in her hand, eyes bloodshot, and said coldly, "You think you've won something. You don't know who I am." Claire stepped forward. "Actually, I do," she said, and she held up a second folder. Karen's eyes flicked to it, and for a second, just one, I saw fear return, because she knew exactly what was in it. Karen's nostrils flared as her eyes locked on the folder in Claire's hand. The 3 board members behind her shifted awkwardly, clearly unsure of why they'd been summoned here, or what they were now part of. One of them, a tall, quiet man in his 60s, with a ball cap pulled low over his brow, looked at the ground like he regretted showing up at all. Claire didn't flinch. She held the folder firmly, her fingers pressed against the top edge, as if it were a shield or a sword. "Before you try to spin another lie, I think your colleagues should see this." Karen hesitated, but Claire had already stepped forward, and handed the folder to the man on the left. He took it, eyes darting to Karen, then opened it cautiously. Inside were printed emails, scanned receipts, screenshots of financial records, and at the very top, a bolded header from the county treasury office. "This is a joke," Karen muttered. "None of that means anything. It's just paper." But the man had started reading. So had the woman beside him, and as their eyes moved down the pages, something shifted. The expressions hardened. The silence thickened. "I traced 3 years of discretionary spending," Claire said, her voice steady, "from the HOA account to a fake landscaping company, which, incidentally, is registered to your sister-in-law's home address." Karen's face went pale. "I also found a pattern of inflated maintenance charges for dock repairs paid to a subcontractor who doesn't exist, and monthly tech expenses, billed under security updates, which coincide perfectly with payments to a local private investigator." "She's lying," Karen blurted, almost shouting. "This is harassment. You can't just your own board members signed those expense approvals," Claire cut in, still calm. "But I'm willing to bet they didn't know where the money was actually going. You buried it in general line items, hoping no one would notice." The man with the ball cap slowly turned a page, his mouth pressed into a tight line. "I don't remember voting on any of these." "You didn't," Claire said. "She submitted them in special sessions with fabricated minutes." The woman beside him looked like she'd been punched. "Karen, is that true?" Karen stepped back, her mouth opening, then closing again. Her hands trembled now, not with rage, but with panic. "This is ridiculous. She's manipulating you. This woman's obsessed with me." Claire didn't even blink. "Everything in that folder is verifiable. Every page is timestamped. All I did was connect the dots you created." Karen stared at her like she was trying to set her on fire with her eyes. But Claire didn't move, didn't gloat. She simply stood tall, arms folded now. As the truth worked its way through the group like a slow, undeniable poison, Karen turned to the others. "You're not really believing her, are you? She's not even on the board. This is none of her business." The man in the ball cap closed the folder. "No, Karen, this is everyone's business now." He handed the folder to the woman, who tucked it under her arm like it was radioactive. Karen's mouth worked furiously, but no sound came out. Not for a while. Then she did something we hadn't expected. She lunged out with violence but with desperation. She marched toward Claire like she was about to snatch the next piece of evidence from her hands. I moved instinctively, stepping between them. "You've done enough," I said. "Step back." Karen froze. Then she laughed. Short, bitter. "You think this is over? You think a few documents are going to stop me? I've run this place. For 10 years, these people wouldn't know what to do without me." Claire gave a small, quiet smile. "They'll figure it out, and you won't be around to stop them." Karen stood there, shaking slightly, until the woman finally said, "We'll be calling a special meeting, tonight, without you." Karen's face crumbled. "You can't?" "We can," the man interrupted. "We have the votes." It was the first time I'd seen Karen look truly small, not just embarrassed, but exposed. She glanced once more at Claire, and for a moment, I thought she might say something, apologize even. But all she did was turn around and walk, not stomp back to her car. The door slammed. The engine roared. Then she was gone. The board members lingered for a moment, unsure what to say. Then the woman thanked Claire softly and followed the others down the driveway, folder still under her arm like a torch in the dark. When they were gone, I looked at Claire. She was quiet. "Still you?" "Okay," I asked. She nodded. "I am now." We went inside, closed the door, made tea. Later that night, the community meeting happened without ceremony. Word spread fast. It was held on a neighbor's back deck, under string lights, with folding chairs and iced lemonade. Half the neighborhood showed up. Claire didn't speak much. She didn't need to. She handed the folder to the interim chair, answered a few questions, and sat back. People spoke not just about Karen's crimes, but about the fear they'd felt, the helplessness, the years of silence. One man choked up while describing how Karen fined his elderly mother over a decorative birdbath. By the end of the night, emotion had passed. Karen was stripped of her title, banned from all future board involvement, and formally reported to the county HOA oversight office. The file Claire compiled would be submitted along with the community's unanimous petition. It wasn't revenge. Not really. It was justice. Slow, quiet, complete. Later, while walking back to our cabin through the trees, I looked over at Claire. The moonlight caught her face, and for the first time in a long while, I saw peace there. Not just the absence of conflict, but the kind that only comes after fighting for something that mattered. You didn't just stop her, I said. You saved this place. Claire smiled, brushing her fingers against mine. I just finished what she started. 2 days after the meeting, the sheriff's department pulled into the neighborhood. Not loud, no sirens, just 2 cruisers, slow and deliberate, parking right outside Karen Dunley's home. We weren't watching on purpose, but word travels. Fast on a quiet lake road, and by the time the deputies walked to her front door, half a dozen blinds had been pulled open along the street. Karen opened the door, still wearing the same robe she used to wear when she scolded joggers for using the community trail before 8 a.m. Her hair was unkempt, her eyes sunken. She looked less like a president and more like a prisoner already waiting for the knock. They didn't drag her out. They didn't even cuff her. But the moment she stepped onto the porch with her hands clenched and shoulders tight, it was clear. She knew what was happening. One deputy handed her a manila envelope. The other spoke quietly. She nodded once. Then they walked her to the car. No shouting. No last words. Just silence. The door shut, and the cruiser pulled away. Gravel cracking under the tires. People stepped out onto their porches, pretending to check mail or water plants. But no one said anything. Not yet. Claire stood beside me, at our window, her hand lightly touching the glass. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She just breathed one long, deep breath, like she'd been holding it for months, and could finally let it go. She's going to make it messy, I said quietly. Probably sue someone. Scream about conspiracy. She might, Claire replied, but it won't change the facts. She turned and walked back to the kitchen. I followed. The sun was climbing now, golden and warm, flooding the counters. Claire poured 2 mugs of coffee and handed me one. She'll be back someday, I said. Claire shook her head. Not like before, not with power. And she was right. The HOA held a second emergency vote the next week. Every position Karen once controlled was replaced. New bylaws were proposed. Oversight rules, public records, access for every financial transaction. Claire didn't run for anything, didn't speak at that meeting. She just sat in the back, sipping lemonade, listening as people took ownership of a place they'd let someone else command for too long. Neighbors started visiting more often. Not to gossip, just to talk, to thank us, to ask Claire how she'd known what to do, how she'd kept her head so long, how she'd managed to unravel someone who had ruled with fear for years. She never gave long answers. Just small smiles. Polite nods. You let the truth breathe, she told one woman. It usually does the rest. A month passed, then 2. The lake thawed completely. The trees filled in. Life returned to normal, but better. People waved more, laughed louder. Kids skateboarded down the road without their parents watching nervously from the porch. One afternoon, Claire got a letter in the mail. No return address, just her name, printed neatly. She opened it on the porch. Inside, a single sentence. Asterisk, asterisk, I underestimated you. I won't make that mistake again. Asterisk, asterisk. Claire didn't even blink. She's still watching. I said, she can watch all she wants, she replied, folding the letter calmly. She's on the outside now. We gave the letter to the sheriff's office. They logged it, thanked us, and said they'd keep an eye on things. But the tone was different now. Not uncertain, protective, like they were guarding something valuable. 2 weeks later, we heard the news. Karen had taken a plea deal. She admitted to 1 count of fraudulent filing and agreed to pay restitution to the HOA. No jail time, but barred from holding any HOA leadership role in the state for 10 years. Fined heavily and ordered to undergo compliance training. She'll hate that more than prison, Claire said flatly. I laughed. A short, surprised bark. Claire didn't laugh, but her eyes flicked with the hint of a grin. The neighborhood moved on, slowly, gently, like someone healing from a long illness. People painted their homes without fear of fines, held weekend barbecues, started a garden exchange at the rec center. In Karen's house, it sat quiet, curtains always drawn. A for sale sign appeared one morning, leaning slightly in the dirt. No one saw her again after that. Some said she'd moved downstate, others whispered she was suing someone in a different HOA now, but no one really cared. What mattered was that she was gone. One evening Claire and I sat by the water, toes in the cool lake. The sun was setting, casting the sky in orange and lavender. It was the same lake Karen once claimed we weren't authorized to use. Now the whole neighborhood had gathered here for a cookout. Kids played in the shallows. Someone brought a guitar. The smell of burgers drifted on the wind. A neighbor came by, holding a lemonade. "Hey Claire," he said. "You ever think of running for the board? We could use someone who actually knows what she's doing." Claire shook her head. "I'm good. I like it better from here." He smiled. "Well, if you change your mind?" She nodded, and he walked off. I leaned over. "You really wouldn't do it." She turned to me, eyes soft. "I didn't fight for control. I fought for peace." I looked around at the families, the laughter, the calm glow of the lake, and realized she'd gotten exactly what she came for, and she hadn't raised her voice once. If you enjoyed this story and believe in standing up to bullies, no matter how powerful they think they are, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe for more real, dramatic tales where justice finds its way in the quietest, smartest ways. And if this reminded you of a Karen in your life, don't forget to share it with someone who'll appreciate the victory. See you in the next one.